Hi, I'm Simon-Walland, and I am going to be talking to you now about consent orders. Now, the subline there, these are the best way to settle your dispute following divorce or separation. So understand what they are and how they work, and that is what I'm going to cover for you. When you separate or when you divorce, there is often a financial link between you. You may have a joint bank account, you may have the house together, you may both have a share in that house. If you're married, more than likely you will do. And there is a court process that separates you both so that you are then both independent and you can move on in life. If you can agree that without making an application to the court and going through all the palaver of providing all the stuff that the court wants so that they can help you to make a decision or force you to have a decision, if you can agree it, that is the perfect solution because you're both happy with it because you've agreed it. There isn't the situation that you will very often have with the court is that you can't agree and the judge will end up saying to you, this is what happens, and neither of you are happy because neither of you have got what you wanted. So this is about consent orders where you have agreed. It's the perfect solution and the one that you should aim for. So a little bit about me. I am Simon Walland. I have worked in family law for over 20 years. I was called to the bar as a barrister in 2010. I haven't practiced as a barrister. I've always worked as a Mackenzie friend with a lot of legal knowledge. So a consent order, which is what we're dealing with here, it can be used and is used for, or are used for children and for financial cases. So if you have reached an agreement about how you're going to spend time with the children, if you've reached an agreement on how you're going to settle your finances, you can do a consent order. Now, you need to work out what is agreed, and you can then have that written into the order. Now, the advantage of having the order is that it is legally binding. It is exactly the same as a court order because it is a court order. It is just done by consent, so you've both agreed. If one of you, and you can separate and you can say, right, what we're going to do is you have the children then, I'll have the children then, that's all agreed, we're all fine. And then you find that life changes and one of you may get a partner or the other one might lose their job and can't pay child maintenance and all sorts of arguments come up. And then without a court order, it is possible for the other person to say, well, you're not seeing the children then. And then you've got to start from scratch. So if you can agree this, you've got something to work on. It is sensible. It is the right approach. And certainly the right approach if it can be done fairly and with agreement. So first of all, you need to work out what is agreed. Now, after this slide, I've got a slide on children and I've got a slide on finances just to give you a checklist of things that you should just consider, include them in your consent order, and then you don't have any arguments. Having arguments over these things is always worse for the children. It's always worse for you. If you can avoid going to court, that's perfect. If you have a consent order, there are no court hearings, so it is easy. So you work out what's agreed and just write down what it is that you want to do, email that to me, and I will turn that into a court order. There are some other documents that would go with each, whether it's children or finances. I will help to fill those out as well, and then you can make the application. The cost of the application, and the costs do change, but it is at the moment £53. If you're applying for children, it's 200 odd, and actually finance is 278, I think it is now, but it's £50 and there are no court hearings. So the idea is you get all the paperwork together, it's all agreed, signed by both of you as being agreed, sent to the judge will read it and say, yes, that looks fair, rubber stamp it, send it back to you, you have a binding court order with you. So I will send you the written order and I'll complete all the other paperwork that you need. I will then be on hand to help you and resolve any problems that would arise out of that. And I will do that free of charge because you would have paid for the consent order. That's the service that I provide. You've got my website details at the bottom and my training academy is there as well. If you would like a consent order and you don't know where to get one, contact me and I will let you know what's involved and how I can help. So you would end up with a legally binding order, which is what you need. If somebody breaches that order, you can then enforce the order. So we've got a checklist here for children, just things that you need to think about if you're going to do a consent order for children. School time arrangements, that's going to be a large part of their life. What do you do during the school week? Are you going to do an evening? Are you going to change the week? Are you going to share the time? However it is that you want to do it is entirely up to you, as long as you've agreed. What happens in the holidays? Holidays are always different. Times are different. Children will have 13 weeks holiday from school. Most people, if they're in full-time employment, have 4 weeks. So how are you going to make all of this work? How are you going to collect the children? How are you going to return the children? All of these things are things that would normally be in a court order. If you have them in your order, then you don't have to argue about it. You don't have to say, well, I'm going to move to 100 miles away. You need to collect the children from me. That wouldn't be fair. So specifying collection and return, then everything is reasonable. What's going to happen in an emergency? What happens if the children fall over, break a leg and go into hospital? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to notify the other person? All of these things I would recommend putting in there. How are you going to deal with information from school and doctors? You're both parents. You should both be sharing this information. Telephone calls. When the children are with the other party, are you going to have a telephone call, FaceTime, emails, whatever it may be? And how much is going to be reasonable before it starts to impose on the other parent's time? And these things work both ways. What happens on birthdays? Your birthday, the children's birthdays, their siblings' birthdays, all of those things. If you put the children first, what do the children want to happen on these days? And then we can put it in an order. No arguments about it. And you can always change these things. If you both agreed that on 1 year, one of you is going to take them to Disney in America, Disney World, whatever it's called, you can agree that and at the time, and you can send an email. I'd like to do this. The other parent says, yes, that's absolutely fine. I'm happy for that. That's a change to the order, but you've both agreed it. That's fine. You can do that. What happens at Christmas and Easter? There are public holidays. So if you are working in full-time employment, it's a perfect opportunity to take advantage of those public holidays. So Christmas and Easter, New Year would also fall into the Christmas area. If you're not sure how to share these things, I can give you advice on how to do it and how most people would do it, but it has to end up being what's right for you. And then any other specific matters. Some children have disabilities, some have extra tuition, some have clubs. All of those things can all be dealt with and all can be worked out. When you're looking at the finances for a consent order, the division of the family home, are you going to sell it? Is one of you going to live in it and the other own a share of it and get that money back later? All of these things are normal, and these are things that the court will work out if you can't agree it between yourselves and work it out between yourselves. And as I say, if you need a bit of guidance on how these things work, excuse me, then I'm happy to do that. Pensions can be worth a lot of money. They are very rarely equal. What are you going to do about that? You can compensate with money. You can share pensions. You can do all sorts of things. But if you've agreed it, that's perfect. Savings. Some people have savings. I don't think I've ever had savings. Your incomes. There may be a difference in income level between the two of you, and that can be accommodated in this. Chattels. That is anything that you own in the home, furniture, fridges, washing machine, all of those things. They all come under the term of chattels. Inheritance. Is an inheritance due? Has an inheritance happened and it's been put into the house? All of those things need to just be considered. Are they an issue? Are they something we need to write down to avoid any arguments in the future? And the key to this is always avoiding arguments in the future. The house deposit, maybe if it was a short marriage, or if you're not married and this is a separation, then what has been put into the house is a very important aspect. And it may be that you say, well, we bought it together, I don't mind, it's shared, we'll share it. That's perfect, because you've agreed it. If you can't agree it, I can give you some advice on how the court will look at it. If you can then agree it, that's fine, you can do a consent order. If you don't agree it, you're going to have to go to court, because that's the ultimate way of dealing with these things.